There's a point in everybody's life. For me, it was just after I graduated high school, where this chilling feeling starts to sink in. You look around and you realize you're not a kid anymore. You see how vast the world really is. You realize you're not going to be something when you grow up. This is it. You wake up, eat some breakfast, drive to work for 8 hours, drive home, eat some dinner, go to sleep. Again, wake up, eat, work, sleep. Monday,
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday,
Friday.
and the cycle continues forever.
And the question finally hits you. Why? Why any of this? Is there even a point to this? And that feeling has a name.
Nihilism.
Alex O'Connor said it best.
The nihilist is someone who sort of takes a bird's eye view of it and realizes that it's all a little bit meaningless.
Those feelings all really started for me once I graduated high school and I decided to take a gap year. As in delay that big question of what are you going to be when you grow up, or what are you going to do with your life for at least 1 year, and I just worked at Starbucks and hung out with my friends instead. And in that year, I got sucked into the everyday person cycle. Wake up, eat, work, sleep, again. And when you get sucked into that everyday person routine for the first time, it makes you realize maybe it doesn't really matter at all. And that big important person that you thought you were going to be when you grew up is all total wishy-wash make-believe. I personally didn't grow up in a religion or a belief system that grounded me in all of those big existential questions that we all want the answer to. What happens when we die? What is consciousness? What does it even mean for there to be a beginning of the universe? I was raised as secularly as you can be in a Christian nation. And because of that, I grew up in this ideology of science. Science being the end-all, be-all of all questions that could be answered. And anything that is important either can be already or will be able to be answered by science at some point. But once I got older and could take a step back, I realized that those big questions, they might never be able to be answered by science. I saw that I was living just as faith-driven and biased as I thought all of these religious people were. And that's when it finally hits you with the big one. Is there even a point to any of this? We live in a world that's telling us things are bleak. Younger people are feeling disenfranchised about the future and our place in it. Less and less decent entry-level jobs exist nowadays, and it feels like we're just getting more and more trapped in this exact cycle of wake up, eat, work, sleep. We don't have the personal or financial freedoms our parents or our parents' had, and we're struggling not to feel nihilistic towards everything. Is there a purpose to any of this? Or do we one day exist and one day we just don't, and that's really it? No meaning or legacy will be brought by my existence. No intelligible contribution will be really made to the human race by me living. These were the feelings I was having in my early 20s.
I started to reconsider why I believed in science so hard and why I thought it was just the simple frontier of all knowledge. And that's when I started to look into philosophy and theology and try to pinpoint what I really thought about instead of just hinging on the tradition of my raised experience. And it brought me to the idea of Mereological Nihilism.
Mereological nihilism is the idea that objects do not exist in reality. And hear me out, that sounds crazy at first. The only difference between one thing and another thing is just the arrangement of particles in the universe. There's nothing in reality that grounds them to be things. The only difference between this windscreen and the microphone itself isn't anything real. It's just something that we're making up in our mind. It's these spatial boundaries that our minds are creating. For more context, think about when this microphone came into existence. There was obviously some time in a factory somewhere when this thing got manufactured. But what happened the millisecond before this microphone became a microphone? When the last screw was tightened into this assembly. No new matter or particles were introduced into the universe. All the particles just got rearranged into this form and function. Nothing new existed. And this is true for everything around us, everything in the universe. You could really call any arrangement of anything a new object. I could take this cup of water and put it on this table. And we can just call it a new object if we want. We could call this cup table. And that's just as much of an object or a thing as this microphone is. The only reason that it is an object is because I gave it a label. I just called it cup table. Now it's a thing. And while this is a very concrete example of nihilism, it didn't make me feel any smaller. It made things feel miraculous. The only reason anything is a thing is because we have conscious minds that can put labels on things. Somehow we just happen to be conscious. We all have these brains that are capable of perceiving and building meaning in the world around us, and us as conscious selves just get to exist and experience the whim of it all. It's all so out of our control, but there's no denying that we are experiencing it all. Something about Mereological Nihilism just sunk in with me. It just felt so real, so true. But it never made me feel this existential dread. It made me feel lucky to be conscious and lucky to be alive. And once I started to question if the things around us really exist in reality, it made me question something else. It seems like we don't really get to pick and choose how we distinguish objects, and it all really just comes down to learned behavior or primitive evolutionary intuition. It seems like we as selves don't really have as much control over how we perceive and act in the world as we intuitively think. And all these questions led me to the concept of determinism, the idea that we don't actually have free will. We don't have the ability to choose how to act. Sam Harris says it best in his book, Free Will. You did not pick your parents or the time and place of your birth. You didn't choose your gender or most of your life experiences. You had no control whatsoever over your genome or the development of your brain. Yes, you are free to do what you want even now. But where did your desires come from? So when you wake up and choose to drink coffee over tea, do you ever actually choose to drink coffee? Where did that preference come from? Try to believe that 2 + 2 = 5. And not like pretend that you believe it, actually believe it. You can't. You don't get to choose what convinces you. You're either convinced or you're not. Even with a more existential belief, like whether something caused the universe to exist, some god. I never chose to believe that. I just read it one day and it resonated. I can't choose to unbelieve it if I wanted to. So am I even really choosing to believe it? I don't think so. And so, if objects don't really exist at all, if we don't even have the free will to change our actions and beliefs, and we have to live with the fact that life maybe just is meaningless, should this bring on the sadness of existential unimportance? No, of course not. So then what's left underneath all of that? Experience. The only thing that we know is true is that we are alive and we are experiencing. It's like René Descartes, like, I think, therefore I am. We are living, breathing things that are experiencing whatever the hell is going on, and we can build meaning in all moments of life. And to me, that doesn't feel empty at all. That feels like a 1 in a trillion chance. It feels lucky. In The Myth of Sisyphus, Albert Camus writes a commentary on Sisyphus. He's condemned to an eternal afterlife of rolling a boulder up a mountain just for it to be pushed back down to the bottom and for him to go get it and do it over and over and over and over again. This is the modern routine. Wake up, eat, work, sleep, again. But instead of feeling anguish for his suffering, Camus writes a different perspective on Sisyphus's emotional state. He realizes the absurdity of his eternal routine. If the descent is thus sometimes performed in sorrow, it can also take place in joy. This word, joy, is not too much. Again, I fancy Sisyphus returning toward his rock, and the sorrow was in the beginning. All Sisyphus's silent joy is contained therein. His fate belongs to him. His rock is his thing. For the rest, he knows himself to be the master of his days. At that subtle moment when man glances backward over his life, Sisyphus returning toward his rock, in that slight pivoting he contemplates that series of unrelated actions which becomes his fate, created by him, combined under his memory's eye and soon sealed by his death. And the essay famously concludes, "The struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. His fate belongs to him. His rock is his thing. We are Sisyphus. Wake up, eat, work, sleep, again. Wake up, eat, work, sleep.
Monday,
Tuesday,
Wednesday, Thursday.
Friday. So, is there even a point to it? Probably not, no. And that's the freedom of it. I was listening to an episode of the podcast The Rest is Science, and Michael Stevens says something that reframes everything for me. He defined meaning as compressed information, as all the leftover bits of information that isn't said underneath the word. When you say the word toast, you don't have to explain the entire farming and baking and preparation progress that makes toast. All of that meaning is compressed and hidden underneath the word.
I'm working on a theory that consciousness itself comes about because the universe has no meaning. If our universe was completely uniform, discarding information didn't matter because there was just one thing. But we don't live in a universe with meaning. We live in one that is filled with lots of different meanings. I can make anything mean anything. I think that we need to have a certain amount of complexity, which is the name for this region in between chaos and order. We need a bit of complexity for a creature like ourselves to exist, and a creature who needs to figure things out in its own head, pack up meaning and unpack the meaning. And that's where the concept of a self emerges. That I am a conscious being who lives in my interior. All of this only happens because the universe has no single meaning.
We create meaning because there isn't one built into it all. If there were some grand universal truth, we wouldn't need consciousness to carve it out for ourselves. But the thing is, we are conscious. We are the makers of our own meaning. One day, we will all die. And in the grand scheme of things, our life may seemingly have been for nothing at all. But to us individually, we can make that meaning for ourselves. There's no grand cosmic script, which means there's no cosmic failures. There's no objective purpose, which means we can't get life wrong. Meaning isn't discovered, it's cultivated, and we get to make it for ourselves.